I am Anil Kumar. Welcome to our series on strategies to solve problems, especially for SAT. Now we have taken up ratio problems in this particular video. This is for all the students who are looking to efficiently answer questions based on arithmetic, pre-algebra. So we'll actually take up 7 examples. One of them is what you're seeing here. Before getting into the solution of this question, let us understand some basics. So we'll begin with question number 1. Question number 1 here is, ratio of boys to girls in a class is 2:3. Find the number of girls if the boys are 24, right? So ratio of boys to girls, we say boys is to girls, is given to us as 2:3. That really means that for every 2 boys, there are 3 girls. So now it says, find the number of girls if the boys are 24. So if we have this number as 24, we need to find the number of girls. Now this kind of question can be easily solved with ratios. Now we know that ratio is 2:3, right? That means what? Well, in ratios, we have a scale factor, right? So remember scale factor. So all ratio problems will be solved by a scale factor, let's say by k. So that is to say, we need to multiply both by the same term, only then the ratio remains same. So how do you get 24 from 2? You get 24 from 2 if you times it with 12. Do you see that? Since we want to maintain the same ratio, we'll multiply this also by 12 to get our answer. 12 times 3 is 36. So the answer is 36, option C. Is that clear to you? So that is how we are basically going to solve most of our questions based on ratios. Perfect. Question 1b. Find the number of boys if there are 40 students in the class. Well, we were talking about boys and girls. Now we are certainly talking about students. That means the question has changed a bit, right? So we have now here, let us say S for students. Now if the ratio of boys and girls is 2:3, then what is the number of students? Well, let's add them up and we get 5. Do you see that? So that means for every 2 boys, there are 3 girls, and in all, total number of students will be 5. Does it make sense to you? Correct? So that's what it means. Now it says, find the number of boys if there are 40 students in the class. So let's again write down the ratio of boys to girls to students now. Well, this ratio, as we've just seen, is 2:3 is to, when you add them up, total number of students are 5. Now what are we given? We are given that there are 40 students in the class. Well, there are 40 students. So how do we get 40? Again, we have to look for scale factor, correct? So what is the scale factor? So to get from 5 to 40, I need to times it with 8. So all these numbers should be times 8 to get our answer. So the number of boys should be 8 times 2, 16, right? So that is our answer, option A. Well, in case you need to find the number of girls, you could do 40, take away 16, or 8 times 3. So we'll give you 24. And you can check, add in 16 and 24 will definitely give you 40. Does it make sense to you? So when we are talking about students, we have to add boys and girls. Is that clear? Question number 1c. How many boys should be added in the class with 35 students to have 1:1 ratio of boys and girls? So that is your test question now. So you can actually pause the video, answer part C of this question number 1. I hope you find it interesting. Okay, let's look into it. So boys, girls and students, the ratio which we know about is 2:3:5. Now it says how many boys should be added in a class with 35 students. That means we have total number of students as 35. Now, can you answer this question? Well, let's look into the solution. I hope some of you must have got it. Now this scale factor is how much? scale factor is times 7. So if I multiply by 7 all of them, I get 7 times 2 as 14 and 7 times 3 as 21. Now we want the ratio of 1 is to 1, right? 1 is to 1. How do we get it? Well, I have to add something to 14, right? So I have to add how much? I have to add 7 to 14, right? To get my answer. Well, this answer was just copied, so okay. So these are not the right values. Let me just hurry. Okay. Let me write down the options for you. 6, 7, 8 and 9, right? So what is the right option? Well, 21 take away 14 is 7. So the option B is the correct option. Does it make sense to you? So in this question, we learn basics about ratios. So when we are given ratios between two things, sometimes we may have to think about total also, right? So that is kind of important. Now let's look into question number 2. Question number 2 here is, if A is to B is 2 is to 3, B is to C is 6 is to 5, find the ratio of A to C, right? Okay, how will you do this one? Now here we are not talking about just A and B, we have included C also. So we are saying A to B is, we'll write here 2 is to 3, right? So we'll write 2 is to 3. Okay. Now we are also saying that B is to C is 6 is to 5. Now we need to get the ratio of A to C. We need to get this ratio A to C. How do we get it? Think about it. Well, the connecting factor here is B. So if I could somehow make these two B's same, I can relate A with C. Does it make sense to you? Okay, that sounds good. So I could again have a scale factor. So what is the scale factor here? We can do times 2. So if I times 2, then 2 becomes 4 and 3 becomes 6. So now you can see that we have the same number 6 for B, right? We have the same number 6 for B. So we can now write A is to B is to C. Since 6 is common, right, we can write them together. Is 4 is to 5. So clearly 4 is to 5 is the correct answer. Do you see that? So the strategy here was, if there are more than two numbers, then somehow we have to get some matching numbers. And it is always good practice to get the center number as the matching number. Does it make sense to you? Right? Now, I would like you to apply the same strategy and answer question number 3. Correct? So take your time, answer question number 3, and then look into my suggestions. Okay, here let me begin slowly. So I have A is to B, and these numbers for me are 7 is to 9. And then I have B is to C, as the numbers are 5 and 7. So the idea here is to make these two same. Correct? So what could I do? Well, I could make both of them as 45. That is the trick, correct? So I could make both of them as 45. So if I make both of them 45, I can directly relate A and C. Does it make sense? Now, how do I get 45 from this particular ratio? I can get 45 from this ratio if I times this by 5. So times 5. So if I times this by 5, I get A as 35. Correct? And how do I get 45 from the other group? I need to times that by 9, right? So this number. Do you see that? So these two numbers get multiplied to one another, right? So if I do that, then in that case, I do get 9 times 5 is 45 and 9 times 7 is 63. Correct? So I get this ratio, 35, 45, 63. Perfect. So that becomes the ratio for A is to B is to C. But the answer here is that we need only B is to C, right? So we need to find what is the ratio for A to B, right? A to B. So from here we can say A to B is 35 is to 63. Well, that option is not there at all. What we can do is we can divide both by 7. So divide them by 7. Divide them by 7 to get lower numbers which can match. 7 goes 5 times and 9 times. So 5 is to 9 is the right choice. So we get B as our correct answer. Does make sense to you, right? So slightly more complicated. So at this stage, I would like you to take some rest, enjoy what we're trying to do, understand, and then move forward. So in this particular case, we have taken now 3, A, B, and C, and we are finding ratio between all 3 of them, connecting them by the center number. And we are again taking use of scale factor to do it. Perfect? Is it clear? Let's move on. So now the question number 4 is, we are into a new category now, right? So we are now writing A equals to 1/3 of B, find the ratio of A is to B, right? So simple question, just to give you a concept which is slightly different. So we are saying A equals to 1/3 of B. You need to find what is A is to B, right? How do we get it? Well, there are 4 options. How could we do it? So whenever we say ratio, it really means what is A over B equals to. So we'll just cross multiply. We get A over B as 1/3. Now that gives you the ratio. A is 1, B is 3. Does it make sense to you? So we can get the ratio as 1 is to 3, and that is our option number B. Correct? So here what we have learned here is that ratio can be written as fraction. And then you need to see it as we have just done in this particular case. Simple. So once you try to understand this, we'll get to the next level of questions based on ratios, right? So question number 5 is slightly more complicated. So now again, complicated because we are now taking 3 things, A, B, and C, correct? Now let's try to understand. The first one here is that A equals to 1/3 of B, and then we have B equals to half of C, right? And we need to find what is A is to B is to C. You know this strategy. So you can actually pause the video and answer the question. Well, the strategy is simple. We have to divide A by B, right? So we divide A by B. We get this as 1 is to 3. And so we can say, well, A is to B is 1 is to 3. Does it make sense to you, right? Perfect. Now here, we'll divide B by C and we get half. So we get B is to C. So let me write here. B is to C is 1 is to 2. Correct? This is from here. So we have, in a way, related A, B, and C. Now, from our learning, we need to somehow connect these 2 things, make them same, right? So I can always get this to 3. So now to connect, we need to make B as 3 for the second one also. So I need to take a scale factor of 3. So when I multiply by 3, I get this as 3 is to 6. You understand that step. So as soon as I do that, I do get my result, which is A is to B is to C should be 1. So we have 1 here, right? So 1 is to 3 is to 6, correct? So 1 is to 3 is to 6. Option C is the right option. Does make sense to you, right? So that is how we are going to do such questions. Perfect. Now let's come to our critical question with which we started the whole video, right? So here is this question. I would like you to pause the video, copy the question, and from what we have learned, solve this. I'll take a break here, go for a walk, and then share the video with you, right? So I hope you enjoyed the nature. It's really wonderful out there, very sunny, and a lot of deer around. Okay, let's start this with a fresh mind. That is kind of important. Now, question number 6 here is, if 2 over 3p equals to 3 over 4q equals to 3 over 2r, find the ratio of p, q, and r. So our strategy is to split them into two parts and then work, right? So we have 2 over 3p equals to 3 over 4q. Now from here, what is p over q? So p over q will cross multiply, leave 3 by 4 here, and take this 2 over 3 as 3 over 2. Is that clear to you? So we can write p over q as equal to 3 times 3 is 9 and 4 times 2 is 8. So we get one ratio, correct? Now let's find the other one. The other one here is 3 over 4q equals to 3 over 2r. So q over r will be equal to 3 over 2 times 4 over 3. Cross multiply, right? So this 3 and 3 cancel, and we could write q over r in the lowest term as 2 over 1, correct? That also cancels, right? It goes 2 times. So we get q over r as 2 is to 1. Perfect? Now what? Well, now we have to link p, q, and r. This really means that the ratio of p is to q is basically 9 is to 8, right? So p corresponds to 9, q to 8. Here we are saying q to r is 2 is to 1. So what should we do? We have to somehow get 8 here. How do I get 8? I need to multiply this by 4, right? So when I do that, I get what? Well, 4 times 2 is 8 and 4 times 1 is 4. So we now connect these two, which are the two 8s, right? So the q is common, 8. You can see that, right? So we can write p is to q is to r with q as 8, p and r are 9 and 4 respectively, right? 9 and 4 respectively. So we get our answer, 9, 8, 4, which is option C. Is that clear to you? Right? So that is how we are going to solve questions involving fractions and 3 terms. Correct? Is that clear to you? Perfect. Now let's take another test question. Now this time we have plenty of them, right? So I think I missed even typing one of them. A, B, C, D, and there is E also, right? So we're talking up to E. So we have 5 of them, A, B, C, D, E. Okay, the answers, it seems, are correct. Okay, so sometimes I make typing errors, but I think the idea here is to understand the strategy. Now the question for you is, if A is to B is 2 is to 1, B is to C is 3 is to 2, C, D is 3 is to 4, D is 5 to 2, then find the ratio of A, B, C, D, E. Perfect. So pause the video, try to answer this. Let's see how to answer. Okay, so let's begin with A is to B, right? So strategy is similar to what we did. A is to B and no fractions. So simpler in that respect. So we have A is to B as 2 is to 1. Okay. Now what? Now we are saying B to C. Okay. So let's write B to C. B to C is what? Now B to C is 3 is to 2. Correct. So let's first just write them down and then we'll figure out how to connect, right? 3C is to D is 3 is to 4. And D to E is 5 to 2. 5 to 2. Now the idea is somehow we have to get these center terms together. Now we could start from the top or from the bottom. Looking into this scenario, I think these are bigger numbers. We'll start from here itself. So in our first step, we'll try to connect these, right? So in this case, we'll try to connect these. So what is the common factor here? I think the common factor is 20. So for D, we can get 20 here, right? Now how do I get 20? I need to multiply the first one by what? These two should be times 4. Then only you get D as 20. When I do times 4 to 8, I get E as 4 times 2, 8. Does it make sense? Perfect. Now, what should I do to 3 and 4? Well, to 3 and 4, I should times by 5. Then only I get 20 for D. 5 times 3 is 15, so I'll write 15 here. Right? So we get a ratio of CDE that should be 15, 20, and 8. Okay. Now what? Now we have to make C's common. Okay. So as far as C is concerned, I should make this as 15, right? So to get this to 15, what should I do? Well, either I take ratios or, fractions or whole numbers. Fine. So what I do now here is that I may have to double them up, correct? So that I could multiply this by 15 and that by 2. So if I times this by 2, I could write this as, so I could write this as 30. I'm doubling them up, right? So the idea here is, since 2 cannot be written as 15 easily, right? Without fractions, it cannot be written. So in this case, I'm going to multiply these numbers by 15. So I'll times them by 15, both of them. So if I times them by 15, I get 15 times 2 as 30. That is what I wanted to match, correct? And this is the value of C. And on the other hand, I get 45. So 45 is the value of B, right? Got it? Okay. Now in the first case, 45, how can I make 1 as 45? Well, that is very simple. I just need to multiply that by 45, correct? So this term here needs to be multiplied by 45 to get A and B in line. So if I do that, then I get A as 45 times 2 as 90. Do you see that? And B will be 45. Got it? So you can see 90, 45, 30, 40, 16 is option C for us, and that becomes our answer. Does it make sense to you, right? So it was a multiple choice question. You could match this answer earlier also, but however, if it is not a multiple choice question, you at least know the method of doing it. I hope it makes sense. Feel free to write your comment, share your views, and if you like and subscribe to my videos, that'd be great. Share my videos with your friends. Thank you, and all the best.